superfluous. Oh, that shouldn't have that negation. Yeah, so we have to ask this question again of whether we want this to be forward derivable. If we can get a forward derivable case from the left-hand side, then we don't have to answer this question, which is the ideal case. I'm all about not answering questions I don't have to answer. Well, we should be able to get forward derivability. Quite easily in this case, actually. We might be able to complete it on this page. Yeah, actually, we don't even have to do. Well, let me see here. Should we border pair A? And then we don't need the extra bracket. Let me think here. Never mind, that doesn't do what I wanted it to do. that is because this is a tautology. That we can and it on. So as we can and on a tautology, so we can remove it without stepping down. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking what might be happening here is that... hold on. What might be happening here is that we feel the need to step down the derivability assertion. And it's because of this term. Let's see. Where did we... Yeah, here we step down this derivability assertion because we're stepping down this term. And then we're going to step down the derivability assertion here because we're saying for all D, D is an element of the identity of the field of R if and only if there exists a B such that D is equal to the ordered pair BB and B is an element of the field of R. And now we're going to derive from this, as we proved we could do back here, I think here. Or I don't know, we proved a lemma back here somewhere. That we can step this down to not D is an element of the identity of the field of R and not A is an element of the field of R. Okay, but we're going to be stepping down our assertion because instead we're going from for all D specifically to the ordered pair AA. So now if I say not A is an element of the field of R, and for all D, so that also means the ordered pair... Yeah, no, that's not what we want to do. We don't want to step it down in this way. Let me think here. We want this term that says D, for all D, not D is an element of the identity of the field of R because we want to be able to say that the identity of the field of R is the empty set. Okay, but does that actually help us? What do I mean? Does it help us to say that actually, yes. So from A as an element of the field of R, we can immediately derive the ordered pair AA as an element of the identity of the field of R. Okay. And then... this is so jumbled. We can derive that the ordered pair AA is an element of the identity of the field of R. So we're saying not the ordered pair AA is an element of the identity of the field of R, and for all D, D is an element of the identity of the field of R if and only if there exists a B such that D equals the ordered pair BB. Let me think here. Well, so the point would be that we could have... No, because this is negated, so we don't get A is an element of the identity of the field of R, and rather, we don't get that the ordered pair AA is an element of the identity of the field of R, and the identity of the field of R is equal to the empty set. That would be a contradiction. And then... No, yeah, I can't figure out where this is supposed to go. It's going in circles here. Well, so this is saying for all A... No, that's also a misunderstanding of quantification, I'm afraid, but okay. This is saying for all A, not A is an element of the field of R. which would mean, naively, that would mean that this assertion, or this term, that there exists a B such that B is an element of the field of R, is false, which would mean that for all D, not D is an element of the identity of the field of R. But yeah, I think I'm mincing my quantifiers. Let's state what my assumption is here. A bit of a lemma where I'm saying for all A, not A is an element of the field of R, and for all D, D is an element of the identity of the field of R, if and only if there exists a B. Well, I don't know, maybe the point is to break down this expression. Maybe we'd figure out what we could do with this if we broke it down. Sure, let's try that. Okay, so I don't think we needed that extra yes, we did. Okay, let's see. Then D is an element of the identity of the field of R. Okay, let's see. Now what is the idea? Well, now we take the conditional equivalence. Horrible bit of logic here. Not A is an element of the field of R. And for all D, not D is an element of the identity of the field of R. Or there exists a B such that D is equal to the ordered pair B, and B is an element of the field of R. Okay. That's fine, and for all B, not D is equal to the ordered pair BB, or not B is an element of the field of R. Or D is an element of the identity of the field of R. Yeah, I mean, we ran into this questions like this weeks ago, and I don't know how we convinced ourselves that they didn't matter, but you end up with phrases like, for all D, not D is an element of the identity of the field of R, which is the definition of the empty set. And yet, I don't find myself willing to replace this term with the identity of the field of R is equal to the empty set. Maybe I should be willing to do that. But yeah, it's because, like, again, we don't have any kind of concrete grounding for what these terms mean, so I can't test anything. I can't write out an example to do sanity checking. Let me think here. Maybe the lemma we should be making here is, I was about to say the lemma we should be making here is that if you have for all A, not A is an element of the field of R, then R is equal to the empty set. Well, that wouldn't work anyway, because the field of R specifically references ordered pairs, so you could have the field of R references, if A is an element of the field of R, then either A is an element of the domain of R or A is an element of the range of R. And then the domain and range definitions reference ordered pairs that are elements of R. So A is an element of the domain of R if and only if there exists a B such that the ordered pair AB is an element of R. So all we should be able to derive from this, not A is an element of the field of R, is that there are no ordered pairs in R. Not that R is equal to the empty set. Actually, that I get an idea out that has been popping into my head a few times. The ordered pair in set theory is a construction. We say the ordered pair is equal to the set containing A and the set containing AB. So, what is my idea here? This serves as an ordered pair. There's a temptation, or I don't know, a habit that people have, justified or not, of saying numbers are sets and ordered pairs are sets and everything in math is a set. What does that mean when people say that? You can restate ordered pairs. Anywhere where you have an ordered pair, you could perform the ritual of transforming it into a set that contains two sets. What it doesn't tell me is that whenever people use numbers in the back of their minds, they're thinking about sets. It also doesn't tell me that the validity of... It doesn't tell me that the practice of mathematicians is to replace numbers with sets or think about numbers as sets. A set containing two sets of the form I described, the correlate to an ordered pair, behaves like an ordered pair, and consequently you can say they are ordered pairs. Or if you're consistent in your application, consistent in your deconstruction of ordered pairs into sets, then you can say, anytime I encounter an ordered pair, I know what to do with it. I know how to deconstruct it, okay, and I deconstruct it in the same way. What point am I making? The thought that struck me was you could ask whether the Pythagorean theorem is true in your in any given system. And one way of interpreting that question treats it as nonsense, and it says the Pythagorean theorem is simply true, so it doesn't make sense to ask whether it's true in a given system. But the alternative way of interpreting that question is as asking whether there is a construction in your system that you would want to call a proof of the Pythagorean theorem. Like, is there anything in set theory that corresponds to the Pythagorean theorem? No, not really. It's not that it's false, it's that there's no... At least without further extensions, there's nothing in set theory that admits of a geometric intuition. There's nothing you can make, again, without further extensions. Well, yeah, because I could make ordered pairs that I call points. Okay, and then I could say, here's a right triangle, here are 3 points, and if I interpret them as being on a Cartesian grid, then I think of these 3 points as representing a right triangle. And with these 3 points, I can perform the Pythagorean calculation and say, yep, there it is. On the other hand, you can't perform, for instance, a Euclidean proof of the Pythagorean theorem. What point am I making? there's nothing in set theory for the Pythagorean theorem to be true about. And this is supposed to be related to the point that supposed to be related to the observation that we call ordered pairs a set of two sets. But the point is that a set of two sets can behave like an ordered pair. Any place where we want to use an ordered pair in other branches of math, all else equal, all else put aside, we could replace an ordered pair with a set of two sets. And I mean, the only way we use an ordered pair is to keep one number in front and another number in second so that we can speak consistently, or so that I can say car and CDR, first and second. So a set containing two sets behaves like an ordered pair in any case where I want to use an ordered pair. Maybe I'm not going anywhere with this observation, I'm not sure. Well, anyway, I'll sit on that idea. Maybe I'll have something to say about it later. Let's see. Anyway. Well, and there's a clear geometric interpretation. If we have a Cartesian grid, there's a clear geometric interpretation for the Pythagorean theorem. I can place 3 points, draw the triangle, and talk about the lengths of sides. There's also presumably a proof method. I could undertake a series of calculations that I take as proof of the Pythagorean theorem by pointing at the triangle I've drawn. Anyway, if I distribute this term, not A is an element of the field of R. Okay. And this would be for all A. No, but this is still... I still don't think I understand what quantifiers are doing here. And actually there was an interesting section in the Software Foundations book for the theorem prover that I might want to look at, where quantification is made more explicit. There's a reason in earlier proofs we have not rewritten this quantifier over and over again. When I say for all A, it's not the case, so if we do it's not the case that this quantifier distributes. I am thinking we can't distribute this quantifier through. It's not the case that for all A, not A is an element of the field of R, and for all A and for all D, ... Because we're talking about the same A. This is all an assertion about any given A we could choose. And so that becomes relevant when we're thinking, I distribute this term, not A is an element of the field of R. This is not saying for all A, not A is an element of the field of R. This is saying for a given A, but you can choose any of them. For that given A, not A is an element of the field of R and the rest. And so what that would mean is that when I distribute this term through, it's this saying not A is an element of the field of R is not a contradiction with the term B is an element of the field of R. There exists a B such that B is an element of the field of R. I am thinking. And that's effectively the point that was in the Software Foundations book, where you're saying you have a proof that's about for all M and for all N. I guess I can pull this up and we can look at it directly. Let's see. It's the section that discusses this. Sometimes it's important to control the exact form of the induction hypothesis when carrying out inductive proofs in Raqua. In particular, we may need to be careful about which of the assumptions we move using intros from the goal to the context before invoking the induction tactic. For example, suppose we want to show that double is injective, i.e. that it maps different arguments to different results. So, theorem double injective. For all n and for all m, double n is equal to double m, then n equals m. The way we start this proof is a bit delicate. If we begin it with intros in, induction in, then all is well. But if we begin it with introducing both variables, intros in and m, and then run induction on n, we get stuck in the middle of the inductive case. And as it turns out, that's because when you intro m here, when you intro in and m, you're effectively fixing your value. So even though you're saying for all n and for all m, when you introduce n and m into the proof, you're choosing one, is how I interpreted this section. And then that runs into issues because you've chosen a particular value for m, the proof runs awry. Let's see what went wrong. The problem is that at the point where we invoke the induction hypothesis, we've already introduced m into the context. Intuitively, we have told Raqua, let's consider some particular n and m. And we now have to prove that if double n equals double n for these particular n and m, then n equals m. The next tactic, induction n, says to Raqua, we are going to show the goal by induction on n. That is, we are going to prove for all n that the proposition p of n, which propositions are types or whatever, propositions are functions, I don't know. If double n equals double m, then n equals m. Okay, so first we show that by, since we're doing induction, we say if double 0 is equal to double m, then m is equal to 0. And then we follow up by saying, I think here, and if p of n, then p of the successor of n, so the same statement holds for the successor, which is the inductive step. If double n equals double m, then n equals m implies if double the successor of n is equal to double m, then the successor of n is equal to m. And then the point is that we have the same m in both cases. So we would be asserting that both n and the successor of n are equal to m. Alright, so this has come at a timely moment with our questions about quantification here. So this is not saying that for all A, not A is an element of the field of R. It's saying you can choose any A, and now we're talking about that A. So to finish out this lemma, let's store this term in diagram blue, and let's store this term. And I'll go ahead and give this. Alright, so we're going to have no, actually, that's incorrect. Let's see. Rather, if we're distributing through, we would have I could have put that in front, you know, whatever. And then we have not A is an element of the field of R, and there exists a B such that B is an element of the field of R. Oh yeah, that would be, yeah, okay. And D is equal to the ordered pair B, B, and then and blue. Okay. And now the point is that this is not a contradiction. So let's give that its own underline here. Alright, and now I will note that it is a system error to derive for all A not A is an element of the field of R, and there exists a B such that B is an element of the field of R, and D is equal to the ordered pair B, B. furthermore be a system error to extract the negation and say not there exists an A such that A is an element of the field of R and dot dot dot. Well, no, actually we need that. So that claiming this is a contradiction would also be a system error. Okay, now I don't know what we can do with that. Well, probably it means we have to take a different tack for the proof. That different tack being... Well, maybe an underappreciated point if I'm saying... So if we start with... For all A... No, but that's the same... I think this is going to run into the same problem. No, we don't need the negation here. A is an element of the field of R. Okay, then not repair A is an element of the identity of the field of R. Okay. So I could put our attempt at deriving a contradiction in the antecedent. I am thinking, so that would look like it's an excess bracket. Right. A is an element of the field of R, and for all D, D is an element of the identity of the field of R. if and only if there exists a B such that D is equal to the ordered pair BB, and B is an element of the field of R. Okay, then dot dot. Right. I don't think that's where we would do it either. I think the point is that we would say not A is an element of the field of R, so we take the conditional equivalence and then we and on the tautology. Okay, and or store this. Okay. Maybe there's a different way of posing this. So if I say let's see if we can get a useful lemma here. So if D is an element of the identity of the field of R, then there exists a B such that it's equal to the ordered pair BB, and B is an element of the field of R. Okay. And if there exists a B such that D is equal to the ordered pair BB, and B is an element of the field of R, then D is an element of the identity of the field of R. Okay. The question is, can we derive, and what kind of derivation can we form? Can we derive the expression that if for all B not well, let's just break this down and see what smashing terms together. our atom collider. Run this through the atom collider. Logical atom collider. Let's see. So we have and we have, after we distribute this term, we will have two and terms. Or, yeah, we could and reduce either of these. We could and reduce either of these entire expressions. Or, yeah, either of these two lines. So if D is an element of the identity of the field of R, then there exists a B such that B is an element of the field of R. Or we could alternatively and reduce down to... Yeah, I guess we could write these down. Let's see. So our first reduction... we can get D is an element of the identity of the field of R, then there exists a B such that D is equal to the ordered pair BB. Alright, second reduction. D is an element of the identity of the field of R. Then there exists a B such that B is an element of the field of R. Though that was already derivable. No, because this is the definition of identity of the field of R. It'd be circular if this was already derivable. Alright, and then we can have let's see. For all B, if D is equal to the ordered pair BB, then not B is an element of the field of R, or D is an element of the identity of the field of R. Alright, next up. Hmm. And then we could have Spanish orange or green. And then it onto those, we could have orange or poppy red. Or similarly, we could start with poppy red as the base and on Spanish orange or green. And this would be forward derivable. Okay, but this is once again bringing us back to nonsense, right? Or we've made some kind of hidden mistake with quantifiers, because this doesn't make any sense. We're saying D is equal to the ordered pair BB without any further context, then B is an element of the field of R. Yeah, raising all kinds of questions about our proofs that we've done in the past, because we've not paid so much attention to the way we want it to work is that you could break up every expression into its fragments, break up every expression into conjuncts and disjuncts, rearrange them however pleases you, and then derive whatever you can derive. But apparently there are more restrictions, though I don't know what they are, and Suppes is not interested in teaching us anything about that. We need a more formal treatment of axiomatic set theory. We need a maximally formal treatment. This one makes sense. This one fails to make sense because we have a semantic reading of it, I guess. I mean, this as an entire expression is not B is an element of the field of R, or D is an element of the identity of the field of R, or D is equal to the ordered pair BB. I'm not really sure what to make sense of that either, but the entire expression doesn't make sense as a conditional expression, but it at least could make sense as an OR expression. If I take the poppy red expression, this is interderivable with D is an element of the identity of the field of R, then there exists a B such that D is equal to the ordered pair BB, and D is an element of the identity of the field of R. Which could be further broken up into okay, though, yeah, we started with the definition of the identity of the field of R. So I guess we wouldn't want to break this up. Wait a minute, how are we... I feel like we're... everything is breaking up into confusion at this point. Nothing makes any sense. Well, so this is the definition of the identity of the field of R. Okay, so we can't break this down further, or I don't know where that rule is coming from, but sure, I don't want to break this down further. But then I guess then we'd need to try really hard to make sure that this statement D is an element of the identity of the field of R ends up on one side of a biconditional. Otherwise, we no longer have our definition. Well, actually, now that I think about it, this is fallout from taking an interderivability assertion and treating it as if it's a logical biconditional. Wait, is this a definition? Yes, I guess. It's like a... I mean, the definition we have here for the identity of A is equal to the set containing its elements, the ordered pairs XX, such that X is an element of A, but our typical way of breaking that down is by saying for all D is an element of the identity of A if and only if there exists a B such that D is equal to the ordered pair BB and B is an element of A. Right, so this is the equality of interderivability, or the equality of definition, which is which we don't typically break down. I mean, similarly, we don't break down this kind of expression. This is an assertion of interderivability. It's not a logical biconditional, at least so far as we've been treating it. Okay, well, because the reason we would want to break down a biconditional like this is so that we could prove a tautology. Like, I could prove that this is a tautology using the definition of the identity of A. But that's not how we've been doing proofs. And this is an illustration of the reason why. It's because when we try to break down an equality statement like this, a definitional equality statement, we end up with the term defined mixed up with other logical operators in a way where we can't manipulate this usefully. Like, again, we would need to terminate our manipulations in such a way that this term is on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of an expression, so that we could say, there's the interderivability assertion. Now, I guess then these are fine. From the definition, I can merely and reduce down, and we get the forward derivability assertion. Yeah, this is all designed, or all of this effort is to resolve these questions about quantification that have to be resolved at some point, so... worth putting in the time, I suppose. With the vague hope, once again, after months and months, we're on page 70. Months and months and months, we're on page 70. The idea is that at some point, we don't have to spend hours resolving these simple questions, and then we can just cruise through the theorems. That has not proven to be the case up to this point. Hopefully that will prove to be the case at some point. Or else it's going to take 5 years to work through this book. Let's recite our difficulty here. We did a lot of this book last year too. For all D, or rather for all A, if A is an element of the field of R, then not the ordered pair AA is an element of R. Actually, maybe we should be breaking down this term, A is an element of the field of R. Maybe so. Let's see. So we say not A is an element of the domain of R, or A is an element of the range of R, or not the ordered pair AA is an element of R. Okay, and now I say not there exists a B such that the ordered pair B, rather AB is an element of R. exists a C such that the ordered pair CA is an element of R. Or not the ordered pair AA is an element of R. For all B, not the ordered pair AB is an element of R. Or for all C, not the ordered pair CA is an element of R. That should be and. Or not the ordered pair AA is an element of R. I'm not sure I see where this is going. Seemingly, we could use this to derive a contradiction, though that would be a bad thing, right? I mean, I'm not sure. Let's see. So let's distribute this term. Not the ordered pair AA is an element of R, or for all B. Not the ordered pair AB is an element of R. Okay. And not the ordered pair AA is an element of R, or for all C, not the ordered pair CA is an element of R. So where's the contradiction? So if we take the conditional equivalence, then we get if we take the conditional equivalence, we can say if the ordered pair AA is an element of R, then for all B, not the ordered pair AB is an element of R, and the ordered pair AA is an element of R. Which is a contradiction. Well, it's a contradiction in the consequent. I don't know what to do with that. We're getting all kinds of wacky outcomes from this. Though we should be getting a contradiction from this, right? Because our initial assertion is that if A is an element of the field of R, then not the ordered pair AA is an element of R. So now we're saying the ordered pair AA is an element of R. I'm not sure what to think about this. Let's see. Alright, well, so the point is that now we can step down. Though now, I guess even that is in doubt. But let's suppose we step down and we say if the ordered pair AA is an element of R, then not the ordered pair AB is an element of R. Rather, not the ordered pair AA. And the ordered pair AA is an element of R. And if the ordered pair AA is an element of R, then not the ordered pair AA is an element of R, and the ordered pair AA is an element of R. Okay, and then we can and reduce. Now this is plainly a contradiction. Or reduce away the contradiction, and that leaves us with not the ordered pair AA is an element of R. Huh. Did we want that? be right back. Okay. I'm going to do 10 minutes of exercise. You'll have to believe me, I suppose. Okay, I'll flip the camera up. I have a strong preference for exercising in the dark. So that is what I'm going to do. Strange. I've looked up a lot of body weight exercises, and doing this is never mentioned. Nor warned against. Neither suggested nor warned against. Seems like people just haven't figured out that you could do this with your body. It's kept a secret by big exercise equipment. Well, and I suppose if I put in as much effort with weights as I have doing this, I would be larger, albeit with reduced endurance. Okay, now what? Yeah, this keeps coming back to the point that we can't get to a statement that says we can't formulate an expression, we can't derive an expression that gives us the empty set. Or at least we can't do that without some statement like for all D, D is an element of the identity of the field of R if and only if ... Okay, but maybe that is a case where we're willing to use we're willing to formulate an empty set expression. Let me see. So we go back to this statement. Not A is an element. Yeah, okay, but again, this is not the expression for all A. A is not an element of... what am I trying to say here? Not A is an element of the field of R, and for all D, right, as we observed, this turns into there exists a B such that D equals the order pair BB, and B is an element of the field of R. Okay, but we're not saying... Well, okay, I mean, maybe what we could do is say... This is also something we haven't done before. No, we can't do that either. We can't say for all A, not A is an element of the field of R, or for all A, not the order pair AA is an element of R. What if we tried this? For all A, not A is an element of the field of R. Or not the ordered pair A. A is an element of R. And no, I don't see what that's going to do for us either. What does that actually mean, though? Well, yeah, logically, you could take either of these two. If either of these two obtain, then D is not an element of the identity of A. And this would in fact be the assertion that B is equal to the empty set. So if B is equal to the empty set, or rather, if A is equal to the empty set, or for all B not D equals the ordered pair BB. Grasping at straws here. I wonder what that means. The etymology of that phrase is. Grasping at straws, you say? And what has this wizardry won me? What has this bit of sleight of hand gotten me? Unclear. Yeah, well, the trick as it is materializing here Hmm. Okay, but unfortunately this is still the entire expression being about D. So, and we can't break that apart. So what we can get out of this, if anything, is that which doesn't really do anything for us. So the most promising lead up to this point might be this. So if I first choose any A, and then I choose any B, the ordered pair AB is not an element of R. And if I first choose any A, and then I choose any C, not the ordered pair CA is an element of R. Relatedly, not there exists a B rather, not there exists an A and there exists a B such that the ordered pair AB is an element of R. If I extract the negation. Which would mean that R is not a relation, I suppose. I don't think that's it either. There's a point we could go with. No, that doesn't work. I mean, why doesn't it work? There exists a B such that the ordered pair AB is an element of R. And, if it doesn't work, that presents a problem. I mean, what if we found out that Suppes' axiomatic set theory is not good? What would we do if we found out that this axiomatic set theory is riddled with flaws? I guess we'd get a different book, I don't know. But we've already spent like a month per 10 pages. More than a month per 10 pages. on this book. I don't want to. I don't want to give it up. Yeah, this seems like we're about to run into an error. What do I mean? So not... Yeah, this should not be interderivable, but it clearly is. Well, actually, it's not interderivable, it's forward derivable, but it shouldn't be forward derivable either. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. So this is saying we're putting a negation out front. We're saying the ordered pair AA is an element of R. Right? Without the negation, we would feel fully free, and with the negation, I still feel free, based on the rules we've been following up to this point. Feel free to forward derive there exists a B such that the ordered pair AB is an element of R, and there exists a C such that the ordered pair CA is an element of R. And then from which this is the definition of range and domain for A, domain and range for A. So not A is an element of the domain of R, and A is an element of, oh, that should be the range. Okay, which when we distribute the negation, we get not A is an element of the domain of R, or not A is an element of the range of R. Okay, however, an easy counterexample, R is equal to the set containing its elements A, B, and CA. range of R is equal to the set containing AB. So neither of these two expressions are true, which makes this false. However, this yeah, that's bad. I mean, presumably what would be just as bad? Hmm. With that intermediate step through, there exists a B such that the order pair AB is nominator. So how is that wrong? Something to do with expanding this expression with a negation out front, but I don't know why that would be an issue. There's a reflection here. If we aren't able to use set theory like this, if we aren't able to go purely through mechanics, it seems to me that set theory is useless, right? I mean, well, it's too broad of a statement. It has exactly whatever uses people make of it, but it's not a trustworthy foundation, whatever that means. I mean, the point of having a foundation is that something to appeal to we have a mechanical system we can appeal to resolve doubt or to resolve dispute. Like, which of us is correct about the way these mechanics play out? Well, then let's consult the mechanics. If you had to come up with ad hoc rules to avoid problems like this, then you don't have a system. Or at any rate, you can't rely, like, who knows, but that when you use the system to resolve your dispute, that this is one of the cases where it can't, because you have to come up with an ad hoc rule to decide instead. Is there something wrong with the derivation? Well, okay. Yes, actually, I think I might see something wrong with this derivation. Because there's additional information that we're leaving out. If we say not the ordered pair AA is an element of R, let's see. Well, really, then we might not use quantifiers at all, and this might be interderivable. Then we say not the ordered pair AB is an element of R and A equals B, and the ordered pair CA is an element of R and C equals A. Or if we do use the quantifiers, not there exists a B such that the ordered pair AB is an element of R and B equals A. And there exists a C such that the ordered pair CA is an element of R and C equals A. And you can't and down inside of a contradiction. You can't and down inside of a negation because it turns into an or, is my semantic reason for adopting this syntactical rule. So for all B, not the ordered pair AB is an element of R. Well, okay, more sensibly, not B equals A, or not the ordered pair AB is an element of R, or for all C, not C equals A, or the ordered pair CA is an element of R. Okay, so that's not a contradiction. However, this is also not resolving our difficulty. The actual theorem we're trying to prove here. However, this was a legitimate transformation. This is when we're saying for all A is an element of the field of R. For all A, if there exists a B such that the ordered pair AB is an element of R, or there exists a C such that the ordered pair CA is an element of R. So that's legitimate, but presumably the test of whether this is time well spent is whether we profitably use the insights we glean during these sessions on later sessions, but there doesn't ever seem to be any profiting stage from all this effort. You know, a thought strikes me here, which is that I feel like I've had many strikingly insightful observations in philosophy of language. And I feel like I have had no insightful observations in math. I feel as though I have not once made an interesting, purely mathematical point. But they're not hiring at the Philosophy Factory. Curiously. Who needs philosophers of language? We're trying to solve large language models. Of what use would an understanding of the functioning of language serve us in trying to generate an artificial language user? a real stumper. Anyway. Strikingly little discussion about how language functions in the discourse around language models. It still comes down to the fact that we can't arrive syntactically at the assertion that, well, we can't arrive at any instance of an empty set. We can't arrive at any term that expresses that either R is the empty set, or more likely that the identity of the field of R is the empty set. We haven't figured out the routing. I'm gonna call it for today. See you soon.